So welcome back to the hot seat today. Delighted to be joined by Mark Greer from the Charities Aid Foundation, or CAF. Mark, good morning and welcome. You've recently joined PCD. Great to have you on board. For members who don't know yourself or the team at CAF, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your role and the role of the organisation in general.
Thanks, David. Well, hi, everyone, and thank you very much for having me on this. It's really great to be part of the club and something that I've been meaning to be involved with for some time. So really glad that we're getting going with that now. So yeah, my name's Mark. I'm the head of private clients at CAF. We look after about 3,000 private clients, helping them manage their philanthropy. And we do that in all sorts of ways, which I'm sure we'll get into as part of this conversation. But in short, we offer an alternative to people running a foundation. So we'll no doubt get into kind of what that looks like and what that means later on.
Okay, terrific. I mean, we've got a webinar coming up next week, which your colleague Edward is going to feature in. There's lots of changing trends. Obviously, the COVID crisis has caused lots of people to think about the way that charities support communities and the way that high net worths connect to broader society. So, I mean, what's your take on changes in charitable giving and the major drivers of change at the moment?
Yeah, well, you're right. There is certainly a lot of change, and last year, 2020, was obviously a huge year for every sector and impacted people in many different ways, and the charity and philanthropy sector was no exception to that. So we saw obviously a very normal beginning to the year for the first few weeks, and then everything changed. But actually the story was really, really encouraging and continues to be so. So obviously after the initial shock, people really responded. And we talk a lot with people about trying to have a long-term view on their philanthropy and to really plan out the impact that they want to have over a few years. But of course, actually last year was a lot about crisis. It was about crisis management for all of us in the companies that we run and in the jobs that we have, but no less so for the charity sector, really, because there was that immediate need in the initial lockdown, a huge outpouring of people wanting to do something in a situation in which they felt very helpless. And so we did see a huge increase in giving to hospitals and hospices in particular. That's usually about fourth on the list of types of causes that people give to. In April last year, unsurprisingly, it was top and 35% up on where you would usually expect it to be at that point in the calendar. So there's certainly been a lot of trends towards health. Health has always been a very popular cause, particularly around medical research and people who experience health issues themselves or amongst close friends and family and want to do something to respond. So that's always for very many years been a very popular area to give to, but even more so, and both on the short term and the longer term. So a lot of people giving to hospitals last year for sure.
So where high net worths have been prompted to think about their giving, philanthropy, as part of maybe a conversation around succession planning, I mean, how do you work with advisors, and how does CAF sort of support philanthropists in their journey of giving and supporting charities? COVID might have prompted them to think in a different way, and then what's the next step to actually start taking some action?
Yes, well, we have certainly seen a lot of people really begin their philanthropic journeys recently as a result of thinking, I'm in a privileged position, I have the means to do something to help. But often, as with many things in life, where to start can be one of the most difficult questions and one of the most difficult decisions to make. And so we really try to help people with that. And we work with advisors in so many different ways. So I'll give a few examples. What we provide is donor advised funds, which is an alternative to setting up a standalone foundation. So usually in the UK, you want your own foundation. You register a company with Companies House, you register its charitable status with the Charity Commission, and you've got this vehicle, you find a few trustees, you've got your accountant, you've got your lawyer, you've got the bankers investing the money, and you run that all yourself. Now, that is quite time consuming and it's quite costly as well. And so under our umbrella, people can set up a fund with their name or an anonymous name, and we do all of that, all the rigmarole in terms of charitable registration, due diligence on donations that are being made, reporting back from charities, all the hassle that goes with giving, which unfortunately is growing all the time, we do, so that the client can really just focus on the actual giving, who they're giving to, speaking with them, hearing how it's going, and structuring the giving in that way. And so that is a great tool for advisors to use, where a client comes to them and says, look, I want to set up a philanthropic pot of money. How do I do that? How much is it going to cost me? So we offer a great quick to set up tool. We can get one of these set up in days rather than months, which it would take to set up separately. So we can offer a great solution to clients in that regard. In the tax sector, it can be a great tax planning tool, where if someone has a particular need for tax relief, say due to a wealth event in a particular year, the great advantage of a donor advised fund is when you make the contribution into the donor advised fund, that's your charitable gift, and that's what goes on the tax return. So you can do that today and claim it on the tax return straight away, but then at your leisure, actually give out to charity. So you're not forced into that decision under time pressure. So it can be a great planning tool from a tax perspective. We work with a lot of wealth managers to offer a solution to their clients where, again, they can set up a philanthropic pot of money and will then invest it with that wealth manager. So they keep that AUM, they offer a great solution to their client, and so the client's got the philanthropic pot of money, it's still invested with that wealth manager, and those three parties can work together. So yeah, we can work with lots of different advisors in lots of different ways.
And I guess your solution works right from there's capability to work with clients making small donations right through, so sort of off the shelf for smaller donors, even professionals themselves trying to keep track of gift aid, right through. I imagine the sort of service or the products that are available obviously are alter as you move up the spectrum, but ultimately you've got a solution for a lot of people who are seeking to support good causes and keep track of gift aid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and as you sort of implied there, we actually have some really great relationships with some advisors where we're helping them with their own giving, which might be a monthly contribution into a product that CAF has. Yeah, keeping track of gift aid is so much easier because you've just made a few donations to CAF. We can give you a statement of that. I struggle with this myself. You sit down and try to think of all the charities you gave to over the last 12, 18 months, and it's very difficult to remember, oh yeah, we did go there and make a donation there, and I did tick the gift aid box when we went to that museum or whatever else. And so yeah, there's that convenience, but we'll often work with those advisors on their own giving and then on their clients' giving, and like you say, there's a solution from sort of no matter what amount people are giving to, through to people giving many tens of millions a year, and having very substantial amounts with us and invested.
And so for the more sophisticated clients then, UK financial institutions can create relationships with you such that you can provide that solution so that they're able to carry on, as you say. Then there's no loss of AUM, but it's helping clients achieve their goals. So I imagine you're working with a lot of organizations already, but are you still adding new financial institutions to that range of different wealth managers you're working with in the UK?
Yeah, that's right, we do. So we work with many of the largest private banks and investment managers in the UK and many of the kind of UK offshore Channel Island destinations as well. And yeah, and we're always adding. So every week there'll be a conversation with a firm that we've perhaps not actually got an existing client relationship with. So always really open to that. And of course, the firms can use it differently. So some firms will make it a real core part of what they talk to clients about. And it will be, we have this philanthropic tool that you can use, and it's all packaged up very neatly. Others, it will be arrangements that we've put in place for one or two clients, and it's less organized. But we find that the firms that really make a product out of it almost themselves tend to make the most out of, or to get the most out of a relationship like that.
Okay, so we can sort of see the funding mechanism there, but then just looking at the challenges of supporting charities effectively, once that pool of capital is raised under the tax official structure, perhaps give us a sense of the challenges of supporting charities effectively and how that capital is deployed.
And obviously a lot of clients want to support charities around the world, because a lot of the biggest needs in the world are in elsewhere and not in the UK. But of course, the challenges, particularly around anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing, a lot of regulation wherever you're moving money across borders, which those who work in the finance sector will be very familiar with. And of course, charitable pounds crossing borders are no different to any other money that crosses borders. And so there's a certain amount of risk involved there. And of course, we have an AML team, we have a charity compliance team that can look at the beneficiaries, look at the flows of money, are the proper controls in place out in the field, where funds are really being used. And we can give clients a lot of reassurance because we're doing that due diligence. And again, realistically, how many clients are going to be wanting to do that themselves? It's not going to be many that want to be involved at that level of detail in the compliance. There's also a lot of rules around that HMRC have around giving to foreign charities and having to make an assessment of whether that entity is doing work that is deemed charitable by the UK government. And you have to stay on the right side of that, not least to protect the UK tax relief that the client has had on those funds. So there's a fair amount of risk management there. But we can, on the softer side of things, we can also help clients to think through, okay, what social impact do you want to have from this gift? How do you want things to be different for the beneficiaries of this charity as a result of your gift? Help them plan the gift. Who are the best charities for dealing with a particular cause in a particular location? And so we can help them with that. And we can sometimes help with the monitoring as well. So did the gift do what it was intended? Or did we learn? Did the donor learn? Did the charity learn? How can that better inform the next gift and the next one and the next one? So there's a lot of challenges there, and there's a lot of different ways that we can help people.
I can imagine, yeah, the size of the organisation is going to mean you can do the analysis and the due diligence on case to help people stay the right side of the line. Because if someone had set up a charitable trust, for example, I imagine the obligations to do those things fall maybe on the trustees or outsourced to a consultant. Is that right? I mean, as a comparator to if someone set up a charitable vehicle themselves, they might not have on-tap access to this kind of due diligence.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So the HMRC regulations are clear that the responsibility lies with the trustees of the charity ultimately. And so, yeah, you would usually either employ people in-house to do it if you were operating at that sort of scale, or you would, outsource it. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's the trustees who are accountable for that work being done, checking that it was done, being done properly.
And they might not realize, they might go into arrangement not realizing that risk fully. So I think that's a very interesting attribute, isn't it? So just zooming out and just looking at the sort of causes that philanthropists are most interested in. Obviously, we chatted briefly on why health has become so front and center for people. But what are the topics and causes that most capture the imagination of high net worth donors in terms of trying to charitable causes to support?
Yeah, so the most popular causes consistently over many years are education. A lot of people support higher education. We work with a lot of American clients as well, particularly American expats in the UK. And within that community, there's a very strong tradition of giving back to the university where you studied. And people feel a real sense of obligation, I suppose, to give to their universities, which is really quite different to the UK, although increasingly in the UK, people are giving to the universities that they've studied at. Because people really see that as a great driver of social mobility. If people from disadvantaged backgrounds can get into those top universities, it really drives their life chances forward so much. So education is very, very popular. Then health is always popular, as I was talking about earlier, because it affects people in such a personal way, and people want to do something. And clearly there is much to be done in terms of research into particularly cancer, but many other diseases as well. So, which
do you think that mental health has really come up the agenda recently? Do you see that factoring through into philanthropy as well, in a way that previously maybe was a bit more stigmatized?
Yes, people giving to certain some of the well-known mental health charities increasingly, and sometimes more entrepreneurial clients setting up organizations that are addressing mental health type causes. We've definitely seen an uptick in that. Some of the other trends you see, particularly amongst younger clients, are increasingly people giving to human rights causes, be that around women's rights, empowerment of women and girls around the world, LGBT rights, human and anti-human trafficking type causes are very, very popular in the human rights arena. And then environment and sustainability as well is increasingly, I don't want to sort of create the impression it's just young donors that are giving to environment and human rights, but there's definitely a trend within that cohort to be giving to those themes far more than the older generations.
Okay, thanks. And I mean, what's on the horizon for the philanthropy sector? I mean, I think Davos this year is online. That often drives a lot of the agenda in many fields, but also in philanthropy. I mean, getting the crystal ball out, what's coming down the line for the sector this year and into the future?
Yeah, so I think this does play into a lot of the big global trends, and it's great to see philanthropy right at the heart of those trends and of those discussions. And I think one of the big things we're going to see in the private client space more broadly over the next few years is around the world there is a monumental bill to be repaid that the governments are going to have to deal with, and there's all sorts of talk about tax changes that are likely to be made in order to do that. And I think it's pretty clear that high net worth individuals will be, I don't want to use emotive language like targeted, but will be looked to do their bit in paying back that debt. And so increasingly we're seeing both advisors and clients wanting to demonstrate what the positive impact that they do have on the world through the businesses they run and through their philanthropy. And I think there's a real trend there to show the good that this cohort of clients is doing. So that's a real trend. I think the trend towards the Sustainable Development Goals, clearly sustainability has become foundational to how many big corporates operate. The ESG agenda in the investment space is more and more important to people. And of course, when you're talking about a philanthropic pot of money that is both invested and given out to charities, people want to have a good impact with that all the way through. And so I think we will see more and more philanthropists looking at their philanthropy as part of an overall impact picture. So, because I think gone are the days where you could be having a really negative impact on the world over here and be kind of having doing a little bit of good with your philanthropy over there. People want to see a holistic, positive impact, and I think we're seeing people look at their philanthropy as part of that big picture.
Okay, terrific. Well, look, Mark, thank you for talking to me today. Look forward to sharing this with our members and featuring Edward on our panel next week.
Yes, thank you very much.